Hello, I just finished reading the book The End of the Free Market, written by Bremmer. It's a book intended for the general reader about world economy. The full title of the book is The End of the Free Market: Who Wins the War Between States and Corporations, published in 2010 by Penguin. The title could have been Alternatives to the Free Market, or Challenges to, or Competitions to the Free Market, or something along those lines. Or maybe containing the forces of the free market, making them subservient to something else, some other end, some other goal. The book is organized with reference to the distinction between free market capitalism and command economy. So free market capitalism, command economy, those two in their pure ideal utopian form, they are presented. And then a third approach is introduced. This third approach is called state capitalism. State capitalism refers to an approach to economy and governance whereby the forces of free market are supervised and harnessed by the state. Each state develops its own particular style based on its priorities, its urgent needs, and the tools that it has at its disposal. And this prevents this fact that each state comes up with its own particular, based on its situation, it comes up with its own particular style of state capitalism. It prevents giving a general account of state capitalism, what it is. We cannot give a formula because it shows up in different forms in each place. What is in common in all forms of state capitalism is that the state becomes a participant, although it is proportionately a strong participant in the market. If you use the sports metaphor, the role of the state is a hybrid role between a player and a referee, or a rule maker, somebody who's participating in the free market according to the free market, but also adjusting its rules to maximize or optimize the benefits of the market for its own sake. In Bremmer's book, we read about why state capitalism has emerged, the reasons behind it, including national or nationalistic interests, for example, with respect to natural resources like oil, gas, and fast emerging markets in Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and other places. The decision, having to decide what to do with the wealth of a nation, and crises worldwide, the crises that affect people worldwide, especially those originating in the United States, which cast doubt on the value of the relatively unsupervised free market. The book helps us distinguish between different forms of state capitalism. The government regulations of the free market can be driven by different motives. It could be economical, to support national products, jobs, and economic growth, or they could be political, to consolidate or increase state power. In both cases, state capitalism protects something, economy or politics. And in both cases, an act of regulation or protection will necessitate, most likely, it will necessitate more acts of protection and more supervision in the future. In addition to reading about China, Russia, the United Arab Emirates, and several other countries, we also read about the Scandinavian states and their style of regulating, intervening with the free market, and how they dissociate between corporations and the function of the state. That is very useful in understanding the subject matter of this book and why this book is presented the way it is, why it is talking about a challenge and with its emphasis on developing economies like China and Russia. The book clearly presents an American perspective, and it is published 11 years ago. But despite those features of the book, it is very interesting and engaging, especially against the backdrop of what I normally read. When you read a book like this, you get a glimpse of the larger world and of how much is going on in the world at the scale of nations and international exchange. Of course, with these topics, our view is always limited and distorted, but even a limited view of the world economy and its history can inform us about what is possible, the types of planning, the forms of organizations, and styles of management that can arise across the world, as how these styles of management are so ruthless at times in the way they come into conflict with each other. If you're used to thinking at the psychological level like me, the sheer enormity of the subject matter makes this type of book very stimulating. Let's end by looking at the table of contents. After an introduction, the book is divided into 6 chapters. First, the rise of a new system. Second, a brief history of capitalism. Third, state capitalism, what it is and how it happened. Fourth, state capitalism around the world. Fifth, the challenge. And sixth, meeting the challenge. Chapter 4 is the largest chapter of the book, and it includes detailed accounts of various countries and their economical development. I like the author's reliance on concrete examples as opposed to general theory about economy and politics. But some of his accounts were incomplete, for example, with reference to Iran, which I know a little about. Namely, Bremmer blamed the Islamic Republic for providing national subsidies on oil and other resources, neglecting the more significant and much more problematic government spendings on military conflicts outside of the country, how Iran funds its various proxy wars. And reading his account of Iran made me a little skeptical about his accounts, the accuracy of his accounts with regard to other countries. In the last chapter, the challenges were framed from the perspective of a free market advocate, or more crudely in terms of an East-West conflict. I think the problem could be much better formulated in terms of different styles of regulation, in terms of relatively better and worse styles of supervising the free market. Some regulation and supervision of the market is unavoidable. When we regress back into debates about free versus unfree market, we miss the more useful and more practical discussion about the styles of regulation, aims of regulation, and the long-term prospects and sustainability of regulations. But the book is worth reading. I would be interested in reading a more up-to-date version of the book. If you know a comparable, similar book written and published after 2018, perhaps even outside of the United States, I would love to know. That's all for now. I will speak with you later.